it's very logical that a large primate would be here. And we have to ask why one isn't here, filling the niche that it occupies, if it in fact is not.
Focus our attention in areas where there has been both a history of a little more open, there's a little more visibility, there are a lot of south-facing slopes that are just brushy instead of thick timber. And so you can, your line of sight is a lot more extensive. Some areas in the Pacific Northwest, you get out there, you can't see more than 10 feet in front of your nose for the thickness of the undergrowth. So the combination of that and the accessibility, it's not that remote, and the unimproved roads, it all combines for a real good outcome.
Inferred from these footprints is the locomotor anatomy, how the footprints reveal anatomy that is indicative of the particular adaptation of this organism for moving about. And one thing that's quite evident is that these footprints are not simply enlargements of a human footprint. There is clear evidence that the foot reveals an anatomy that is quite distinct from the human, and in many ways is reminiscent of a more primitive, more generalized ape foot morphology. The toes are relatively longer in proportion to the length of the foot. The midfoot is quite flexible and allows for some independence of movement of the heel segment relative to the remainder of the foot. The feet look superficially human-like by contrast to other apes in that, primarily in that the great toe is no longer opposable or no longer divergent from the lateral toes. And if we forget everything else and just look at the footprints, the bottom line is they exist, and there's really only two reasonable alternate hypotheses. Either they were hoaxed, or they are the record of passage of a living organism. And there are ways in which we can evaluate those two hypotheses, and never know for sure until we actually obtain a specimen. But there are ways in which the scales can be tipped decidedly one way or the other in support or in refutation of those two hypotheses. Here again, the question is not going to be ultimately satisfied or resolved until a specimen is collected. I can't emphasize that enough.